Hello, children, and welcome to a new chapter, the nervous system. So, we will be taking a closer look into our own brains now. Now, the system that controls all the systems in our body is called as the nervous system. So, basically, this nervous system has the control of your entire body. It is made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and nerves. How do these three work together? The nerves will carry the messages from all the parts of your body to the brain, and this message is carried through the spinal cord. And the brain will study all of these messages. So you receive so many messages, there'll be so many questions in your head, and this brain is basically going to cut down and simplify all of these messages, understand it, and finally instruct the body through the spinal cord and the nerves as to what it has to do. So all of this looks like a complicated process, but children, it takes hardly a fraction of a second for the brain to understand what messages it receives and finally instruct the action plan. For example, whenever you see a stone approaching you, you have to either run away from the stone or duck. So, for example, if you're going to run away from something, the brain is going to instruct the circulatory system and the breathing system to work really fast so that you get all the energy to run. So, in other words, the nervous system controls all of the sense organs in our body. Without this, we cannot see, we can't hear, smell, taste, we can't even feel, walk, run, or even think. So, in simple words, we can't do anything without the nervous system. So, let's talk about the main organ of the nervous system, which is the brain. Let's talk about the brain. It is one of the most remarkable organs in the human body, and it is protected by a bony skull. Now, because it's such an important organ, it has to be well protected, right? So, it is protected by the skull. And it looks very similar to walnut. Have you children seen a walnut before? If you haven't, go and ask your mummy. It's a dry fruit. It's called walnut. It looks exactly like the brain. And it is the control center of the entire body. In IT terms, if I have to tell, this brain is like a supercomputer that controls everything that goes on in our body. It can store and recall information as and when it needs. Suppose you are suddenly asked a question in your exam, so you would have stored all the information that you studied the previous night, and when you see the question in the exam, you recall the things that you have studied and you write it in the paper. So this is called as memory. Storing and recalling information is called as memory. Now, when we see, brain is not just one single part, it is made up of three different regions. So, what are the three different regions of the brain? The first region of the brain is the cerebrum. Then we have the cerebellum, which is the second region. The third region is the medulla, which is also called as the brain stem. So, we will take each of these regions and study them in detail now. We'll first talk about cerebrum. So this region of the brain is called as the cerebrum. As you can see, the entire colored region, that is this, and this entire region of the brain is the cerebrum. So cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, and it is the thinking part of the brain. If you can see this diagram here, this is the part of the brain that has maximum amount of folds, right? The more the folds, the more is the intelligence of the person and the more is the thinking capacity. So it is with our cerebrum that we think. And this cerebrum controls learning, it controls memory, it controls intelligence, and it is the region from which thoughts arise. Not just that, children, the cerebrum also controls all the sense organs in our body. So you can imagine how important the cerebrum actually is. And this region, if you see, is bigger in case of humans than in most other animals. So this explains why humans are more intelligent than other animals. So let's look at the next region of the brain. What is the next region after cerebrum? It is cerebellum. So let's see what cerebellum is. So when you see cerebellum, this region of the brain is the cerebellum, and it is found at the back of the head. If you can see, this is the face of the person. So this cerebellum is towards the back of the head, and it controls the movements of the muscles in your body, as well as helps us maintain our balance. We are able to walk straight because of the cerebellum. Next part of the brain is called as the brain stem or the medulla. So the green region of the brain that you see here is the brain stem or the medulla. It is the lower part of the brain, and if you can see here itself, this looks like a stem. That's why we call it as the brain stem. And it joins the brain to the spinal cord. So this is the region of the brain that joins and continues as the spinal cord, and this controls all the involuntary actions of our body, such as breathing, circulation. All of this is controlled by the medulla. Now I told you that the nervous system is made